Hey there, Kingdom Dream Chasers. So it's wonderful to be with you. I had to go back and look at when this podcast started. So I started April 5th, 2022, scared, nervous, all the things, working on the first few episodes, trying to follow the instructions of what a good start to a podcast was. And I've really been faithful. God has just had me been faithful to the Wednesday mornings. And it's very rare. And what has that been? So about 2.5 years, about, not quite that I pretty much drop every Wednesday morning. But last Wednesday was a woof. So thank you for your grace. If you're like, where was she? Where did she go? But I've got some special things for you. So the first thing we're going to talk about today, I have four scriptures that we're going to jump into about what does it really mean to build on the rock? What does it really mean to build our business? And stop wasting time, stop wasting time, losing time, not applying wisdom to our time. We don't do these things intentionally. None of us wakes up in the morning and is like, you know what? I'm just going to waste a whole bunch of time today. Said no one ever. Well, unless maybe you're on vacation, whatever. But even that's not wasting time. So you get my point. So we're going to be going through, and I think there's going to be some wonderful insights for you. I know they have blessed me a lot just even preparing. And then when we get to the end, I've got three very practical, very simple things that you can do to just really be checking in on how to keep yourself on that rock. All right, we'll talk about that. But I also want to tell you about the next four episodes. So the next four episodes, I've hinted at this, but it's finally here. It's coming. We're going to be looking at the story of Nehemiah, who God told to. There was a crumbling wall. I won't go into all the details now, but God said build the wall, and a lot of things happened during that journey, even though it was a very short time period. But we're going to look at it from our perspective as business women or following any calling, any assignment that the Lord has given you. What does it look like when He says to us? You might have some crumbling walls there. I want you to rebuild those walls. And how about those gates? I want you to pay attention to those gates. So we're going to be looking at Nehemiah's story, but we're going to be reflecting, using some of the truths that God was showing him and applying them to our lives. And I really think it's going to be fun. And I think it's going to be a fun blessing for you. So I am going to now take us back into where I said we would start with these four things. I'm also going to be referencing a little bit later in our conversation. There's a book, and it's been around for a while. I have seen it be recommended a number of times, and some of you might be like, "Oh yeah, I've read it." But it's called Circle Maker, and it's by Mark Batterson. And so I'm going to be referencing his book. And so I don't have the page number, but I'm going to be referencing something in there, and I know you can find it. You can even use ChatGPT if you have the book. You can even say, "Hey, ChatGPT," or "Hey, Google, what page in Mark Batterson's book, The Circle Maker, is this quote?" Because I will read something to you from there because it's really profound and it's perfect for us, Kingdom Dream Chasers. So let's jump into this. So I titled this podcast, This One Thing, What Else Matters? Now, we know big picture, Jesus is the one thing and nothing else matters. And so going a little bit deeper with that, what does it mean when we say for our business that he's the one thing and nothing else matters? How do we take that same principle that's easy to say in a church setting and in prayer time? Jesus, you're the only thing that matters. Anything else doesn't matter. How do we apply that to our business or your calling, your assignment, the mission that God's given you, perfectly purposed for you before time began? So let's look at Matthew 7. Matthew 7, we enter into Matthew 7. Jesus is concluding the Sermon on the Mount, and he's talking about the wise builder. All right. And he talks about the difference between the wise builder and the foolish builder. And this is what I was referencing when I talked about that wasting time. No one, I don't believe any of you, set out to build a business to start to help earn some income for your family, step into your calling that God has called you to, with an intention to be wasteful of the time that God gave you. But I pray that this is going to be a blessing to you and really kind of further cement your commitment to what you're doing and how you're stewarding and using your time. Time is one of the most precious gifts He's given us, and stewarding it well. is really important. I used to think that stewarding time well meant being as busy as possible and stacking as many appointments and as many tasks together as possible. And I soon found out that haste makes waste, and multitasking is highly overrated. And so, what the Lord has taught me is to really be stewarding time well means I'm implementing into my day a lot of moments of rest, because in rest I grow in my trust. I grow in my intimacy with Him because I seek His presence. I step away from my tasks and that kind of bondage that tells me that I must perform, I must complete. And I step out of that tyranny of now, that I must do this now, and these lies and pressure. I step out of all of that. And in so doing, I become more efficient, more effective. Because why? Because I'm seeking peace. So I return in a much more peace-filled place. Because I am seeking that rest, I have more wisdom, and because I have His guidance now, because I'm quieting myself in that rest to be able to hear. So now I'm being guided instead of running full speed ahead on Gail's ideas, which are nothing, nothing compared to God's. So the wise builder versus the foolish builder. So Jesus tells us the wise builder builds his house on rock so that it's going to withstand the storms. Now, it's easy to look at this scripture and see big storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, and that's true. But let's talk about our spiritual lives, and let's talk about our lives in our business. What are some of the storms that come in your business? Is it an attack on your emotions on social media? Is it an attack on your emotions on that tyranny of now? Is it a feeling of that imposter syndrome that I'm not enough? Is it a fear of earning money that somehow you will then become that make money an idol instead of keeping the Lord first? What are the storms that come in your business? Um, we've got to be aware of what those are so that we can, because the first step to changing anything is awareness. So the wise builder builds his house on rock so it can withstand the storms. Um, and as we continue through these scriptures, you're going to get a clearer picture about that sense of being on a rock, that firm foundation, and what that means to us. The foolish build on sand. And guess what happens when the storm comes? Completely collapses what they have built. And so I have found often for me when I try to analyze, why am I on the sand? What am I doing? Why did I get off of the rock? What told me that that secure place standing on God's promises was somehow not the right place to be? Usually for me, it's something that said this isn't happening fast enough. Truth, right? That's just truth for me. And so I go where I think something looks easier, or something looks faster, or some shiny object. And it ends up, I'm spending time trying to build something on sand, and then it all falls down. When any storm blows my way, when anything comes at me, it all falls apart. So all the time I spent, all the energy I spent, it was nothing more than a distraction and a waste of time. So, the other thing is I've had to look at, where do I get wisdom? Because I get wisdom from standing on the rock. I get wisdom from that place of feeling secure and sure in His word, right? And on His promises, the truth of who He is. And that immediately grounds me. And so that is really, really important for me. So, where do you get that revelation of the word? And how, for me, it's in that intimately applying God's word in my life. The two places I mainly get that sense of hearing, making space for the Lord, hearing His word, and applying it to my life is in my morning time with Him, for sure. That is my daily bread, my daily sustenance. And when I don't have that morning time, everything feels shakier. Everything. And everything that comes emotionally by, I don't feel rooted and grounded. I feel blown and bantered instead of, that's interesting. Um, so it really is the difference. Let's say you've got someone in your life who's maybe emotionally volatile right now, because we all can be at different seasons of our life. So we have grace. So let's say that happens. And if you're not grounded, when they get upset, right? It's like fireworks. But when you're grounded and they're upset, you're like, huh, I'm sorry you're feeling that way. Or, huh, that's interesting. You're grounded. You realize that their emotional turmoil isn't about you. They're not trying to upset you. They're not trying to set you off, right? And so same is true in our lives, in our businesses, whether it's our relationship, our health, our business. All right. Um, so for me, it's that making space, surrendering, laying myself down, my ideas and everything for the day, receiving his love, growing in my trust and in my faith, in his word every morning. And how I know that I'm doing that is proof is in the day. Did I move through the day with a sense of wisdom and confidence, or did I move through the day feeling emotionally unsettled all throughout the day? Now, please don't mishear me. I'm not suggesting that there aren't seasons in our life where we're going through grief or something significant happens. And of course, you're going to be having an emotional day, but that's not where we live on a regular basis. All right. Um, so the second place, I told you there were two things. So the morning, my morning time with him, and then the second place is, and this one's been a little bit harder, and I know that might sound, even though that morning time I've had to fight for, and continue to fight for every morning, but it's I've had to let in a very close couple women into my life. I've had to be willing to risk and be vulnerable and share things about my business, my dreams, what's going on, so that they could speak life into what I'm doing and they could show me things that I can't see on my own. I can't see what I'm standing on. I can't read the label when I'm inside the jar. And so I've needed to take the risk, be vulnerable, be humble, and accept some outside information because when I don't do that, there are things building up that aren't good for me and I can't see them. All right. So those are the two big things that I've done. The second scripture that we're going to go to, Luke 6, he carries on about the wise builder. And he says, the wise builder comes to him, Jesus, and hears his words and acts on them. Now, I loved this because, you can go out and be a wise builder on your own, or actually, probably not in this example. What Jesus is saying is if you want to be a wise builder, meaning that you're applying wisdom to the work that you're doing, you are not working on something that's going to fall apart. You're working on something that's going to last. And if that's you, that means you come to him. Right there, there's that admission that I cannot do this without you, Lord. So you've come to him and you know what is most important. You've heard his words. You've heard his words and you've acted on them because it is not enough just to hear his words. I'm sorry, but it's not. Do you know how many Christians out there that are full of the knowledge of his word, but their lives they aren't taking action and serving and loving? Okay. So, um, now he says that this man dug deep and he laid the foundation on the rock. And what I loved about that for us businesswomen, when it says dug deep, guess what digging deep means? It took time. And digging deep means that there were things happening, important, highly valuable, sustaining things that happened in your business that it didn't look like there was any fruit because it's all under the ground. You had to dig deep first, but you did it with faith and trust that that work, that extra time and extra effort to build, to dig deep and then put that foundation on was going to be so worth it. Back in the day, we had a construction project at our home. And I was shocked at how there was a wall they were putting up. And I could not believe how deep they had to dig in order to guarantee from a civil engineer standpoint that that wall was going to stay up because of the frost, because of the weather and where we lived. They had to dig far. I was shocked, and that's the same idea here. We want it to withstand the flood, and without being shaken. And then I said, some days, what are those floods in our business? Some day it's a flood of disappointment. Some day it's a flood of emotion, of doubt and worry. But when I'm on the rock, I may start to wobble when those floods come, but I look up, I see his face. I hear his promises. I restate his promises because I know them. I regain my balance. And so when I feel overwhelmed or full of anxiety, let me say that again. When I feel overwhelmed and full of anxiety, I know I've left the rock. And I have somehow gone looking for that easier, softer way, and I'm back on the sand. And so I don't shame myself anymore. I just say, Lord, how did I get here? And I go running back to Him, get back into His Word. I go back with the eyes up. I go back to the mornings. I go back to the surrender. I go back to asking for Him to speak the truth of not just His words, but how they're intimately applying to my life today. So, because if I stay over there on the sand, I'm just going to keep sinking. I'm just going to keep sinking. Now, in number 3, we're talking about Paul, and he's in First Corinthians 3. And this is where I'm going to go to Mark Batterson in the beautiful, where's my little, there it is, um, circle maker. Now, Mark is talking about when he says circle maker, what he's talking about is that we make a circle of prayer around the dream that God has given us. So I work with a lot of Christian business women who God has given them a vision. He's given them a calling. He's given them a passion. But Mark says you have got to encircle that with prayer, a protection, which is just a foreshadow into our next 4 weeks in Nehemiah. So that circle maker, all right, and pray over that. So listen to what Mark says. Our date of death is not the date etched on our tombstone. The day we stop dreaming is the day we start dying. When imagination is sacrificed on the altar of logic, God is robbed of the glory that rightfully belongs to Him. In fact, the death of a dream is often a subtle form of idolatry. We lose faith in the God who gave us the big dream, and we settle for a small dream that we can accomplish without His help. We go after dreams that don't require divine intervention. We go after dreams that don't require prayer. And the God who is able to do immeasurably more than all of our right brain can imagine is supplanted by a God, lowercase g, who fits with the logical left side of our brain. Nothing honors God more, ready for it, than a big dream that is way beyond our ability to accomplish on our own. Why? Because there's no way we can take credit for it. And nothing is better for our spiritual development. And this is what I want you ladies to hear. You hear me talk about this all the time. God didn't bring you into into marketplace just for you to make money. This is about your spiritual development because as He blesses you, you are able to bless others. So nothing is better for our spiritual development than a big dream because it keeps us on our knees in raw dependence on God. Drawing prayer circles around our dreams isn't just a mechanism where we accomplish great things for God. It's a mechanism whereby God accomplishes great things in us. So what Paul says in First Corinthians 3, that the quality of our works, and I had to caution us because um, before I read this, I wanted to set it up because it says the quality of our works will be tested by fire. And if they're built on Him, the rock, um, they'll stand or they'll be burned up. And so he's talking about the quality of our dreams, because not so much our works, like we go out and we do this and that. It's the quality of our dreams and our faith in believing in them that then we take action on that. So God's given me a dream. I build on the rock and I move and I take action from the rock, from a place of rest and trust that God. I don't really know what's going on here, but you do. And so I'm just going to move forward because you've asked me to, and I'm going to trust that you got it. And so when we do that and we put that prayer circle around those dreams, we're building on God. And number 4. Number 4 is from Psalm 40, and it's this beautiful description of when God pulled us out of our own destruction. We've all been there at some time in our life, something difficult. It could have been a food addiction, an alcohol addiction, a cigarette addiction, a sex addiction, nicotine addiction. It could have been a social media addiction. All the things, right? Doesn't matter what it is. We all have suffered with bondage. And, the Bible talks about quit quit quantifying sin as if, oh, my sins aren't that bad, but ooh, that one that you got, ooh, that's a big one. No, God doesn't do that. So anyway, just keep a focus on ourselves. In other words, we got plenty to do here. He who's not in glass houses, cast the first stone. All right. So here this pull me out of destruction, out of the miry bog, and I just love that phrase. And so I went and looked it up. What does miry bog actually mean? Well, wait. First, he pulled me out of the destruction, out of the my destruction, out of the miry bog, and he set my feet upon a rock, making my steps secure. I don't know about you, but that's where my peace comes from today. I know my steps are secure. And if they're not, it's only because I've left the rock. And I have free will to do that. And I don't shame myself anymore when it happens. I just say, oh, wow. Now I remember this is not where I want to be. And I go running back to him. So let's look at miry bog. Miry bog is a deep, and we're not talking about that deep foundation. We're talking about the deep pit, right? It's a deep, slippery patch of muddy earth. So can't you just see it? Like you're trying to get out and you just keep sliding. All right. So the goal, ladies, is to never get back in there. Okay. It's difficult to escape from. When we're in there, we feel trapped and desperate. Sometimes we do desperate things when we feel trapped. So many of us have been there at some point in our lives, but the Lord gave us a taste of that so that we could say, oh no, I will keep a prayer, a hedge of protection. I will wake up every morning. I will be in his word so that I don't go back to that deep, miry bog, that slippery place where I feel desperate and trapped. Um, and we also know how it feels so we can help others out of that place. Um, now, yeah, as I said, we don't have to ever go there again unless we choose to. So we're going to be wrapping up now with the three very simple suggestions that I have for you. The first one is, and I can't believe how profound this is in my life. Then there's a part of me that wants to resist doing this, and I have to really look at that. The number one thing is accept that struggle is a normal part of my life, my business. Because when I don't accept that, I'm always looking for something comfortable. I'm always feeling punished when things go off or wrong or are hard or struggling. And I'm always wondering what's wrong with me. Girl, it's not about you. It's normal. We are going to struggle in this life, and it's to equip us. It's to make us stronger so that you have the confidence that you are now equipped to go serve at a higher level. So it's a gift. It's not happening to you, it's happening for you. Accept struggles as a normal part of your everyday life. And guess what happens when they come? You don't freak out. You don't go running, trying to find the comfort of the sand that looks like a shiny object and it looks easier. You stay on the rock. So, and for me, every time now when I have difficult things happen, I go running back to his presence. That's it. I just say, thank you, Lord. Thank you for the pain that I'm feeling because it's just reminding me of how much I need you. Thank you for the gift of that remembering. Number two, I commit every morning to seeking him first. And I don't know about you, but I started this about 8 years ago and I needed structure. Not everybody is like that, but I needed structure. And because I had the structure, I was able to really and still do grow in my intimacy. I have a much greater trust in the Lord. I know his love at a much deeper level. I have a much greater faith today. Am I perfect? Do I make mistakes? All the time. And no, I'm not perfect, but it has made an amazing difference in my life. And if you don't have that and you need it, go grab my book, Master Your Morning and Change Everything. That's on Amazon. Number three, know his promises. So you can easily, all you have to do is Google, give me the top 10 most popular promises of that the Lord gives us, that God gives us. Go search them yourself. Go look them up in scripture. Memorize a few of them. Be able to rattle them off when get back on that rock. God, I know you're on the throne. You are the maker of heaven and earth, of everything that is seen and unseen. You know every hair on my head. You knit me together in my mother's womb, and you know all of my days. Why would I want to seek anyone but you for my future, for the solutions, for the blueprints, for the ideas? You have plans for me, plans to prosper me and not to harm me, to give me a hope and a future. You came so that I would have abundant life, live it to the full. You came so that I wouldn't hide my light. You would be in me and allowing others to see my light as I move, your light as I move forward. So, standing on his promises. Lastly, the way I look at it as I used to live in that miry bog. Sometimes, at least, it felt like I was there. I felt overwhelmed and anxious often. It was more my normal state than my not normal state. And today it is not my normal state, but it still comes. And the analogy that I'd love to use is what used to happen is I'd be sitting at my kitchen table. This is the story, right? Sitting at my kitchen table, and I would feel overwhelmed. Like it was like this pounding on the front door. And there was the overwhelm, there was the anxiety. And I would just open the door and say, "Come on in, sit down at the kitchen table. Let's have a cup of coffee." And I would sit with that overwhelm. I would sit with that poor me. I would sit with that. I'm not enough. I can't. What was I thinking? Doubting, worrying, frustrated. Nothing about the kingdom life in that, not choosing to live in that. So now it's a knock at the door, and I go to the door because I feel it. I feel it. But I look out and I'm like, oh, no, 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 I am not opening this door today. No. And I go back to the rock. I go back to the promises. And I know that I've started my day with him. I've made space for him. I've made rest for him. I've put rest in my day. So remembering, as we wrap up, if not you, then who? Right? We all have a call to go be and serve in love in the marketplace. We're all called to it. So you get to be blessed so that you get to go be a blessing. And I hope this really touched you. I would love to hear from you. Drop some comments or send me a message, and just pray it was a blessing for you. And keep in touch, because the next 4 weeks we're going to be jumping into Nehemiah, and I know it's going to be a great blessing.